Our next guest she's the founder of Descriptive Video Works and a passionate advocate for the blind and partially sighted. She's here to share with you why descriptive video is relevant for your productions and is an integral part of growing your audience. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Diane Johnson.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you very much for attending. It's great to have some people here to find out a bit more about descriptive video. Before we even get started, do you know what descriptive video is or audio description? Yes? Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. My background is broadcasting, so I started in television and radio. And then I was marketing director for Disney for 5 years. And then when the CRTC mandated that audio description or descriptive video was going to be necessary for broadcasters, I thought what a great opportunity to make a difference and work in broadcasting. So we do something similar to what you all do, is you're storytellers, and we're telling a story for somebody that's blind and vision impaired. So we do our description in between dialogue so that they can have that picture painted for them. And it's very important to make sure that they know that the picture is related to what's going on, because they can't tell, obviously. And a lot of people say, well, there's not really a lot of people that are blind and vision impaired. In the world, there's 285 million people that are blind and vision impaired. So it's a whole new audience, really, that have never, up until probably about 15 years ago, when I started the company, have really never had access to a lot of great programming, whether it be streaming, whether it's online. We do a lot of work for Netflix. Amazon is now doing it. So it's not limited just to broadcasters. There's a lot of new opportunities. One of the things that's important to us is that we work with an advisory council, people that are blind. So before I even started the company, I thought it makes sense to talk to people that are blind and find out if this is actually even something that they're going to be interested in or are going to watch. And one of the things I think you may find surprising is a lot of sighted people now are really enjoying audio description. So on something like Netflix, if you download the app for audio description, you can be, when you're driving, if you're binge watching, obviously you're not going to, watch TV in your car, but it's almost like an audio book, so that you can have the show as you're driving, or if you're, commuting or anything like that. So there's some new opportunities that are coming out as well. And the level of audio description is just increasing. I mean, we've done about 30,000 shows. When we first started, we were doing maybe 1 or 2 shows a month, and now we're doing over 100 shows a month. So a lot of different genres as well. We do cartoons, we do narcos, we do Spanish, we do, English, obviously. We're now starting to do more corporate as well. So it's more the shorter videos, like the 2-minute or the 7-minute shows that we're doing. One of the things that to us is really important is the integrity and the quality that we're, the programming that we're doing. We're finding that there are some companies that have started up and have said anybody can do this, and it's really difficult to do. As Paula knows, it's hard to voice it sometimes because you've got to get the voice just right. You don't want to monotone, and you don't want to give the story away. We do a lot of comedy. When we first started, we were doing all of the Corner Gas shows, and that was one that you had the comedy aspect of it, but you couldn't give away the joke. We did 179 I Love Lucy shows, again, a different type. SpongeBob SquarePants. We did 400 SpongeBob SquarePants shows. And when I first got those shows, I thought, who am I going to get to voice it? And with my radio experience, of course, I went to some of the radio people that I'd worked with and thought, okay, this is the guy that can do it. So at show number 399, let me tell you, he was so tired of SpongeBob SquarePants, but, had done a very good job of it. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you a couple of shows that we've done, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do, and then I'd love to hear any questions or comments or anything that you have, okay? So let's put Travelers as one. I think we're in season 4 of that, and it's a Canadian production, but it's now, it was airing on Showcase, and it's on Netflix as well. So
Opening. A line of encrypted symbols appears.
So think about if you were blind.
Rows of orange code flash as her hand jerks. Title, Travelers. Created by Brad Wright. A black prop plane cuts through a blue sky dappled with fluffy white clouds. Two skydivers jump out and clasp hands midair. Words appear, time of death, 12:31. The divers break apart and the blonde female diver gives thumbs up and waves as her partner drifts backwards. The woman grabs her head. She squeezes her eyes shut, then opens them. She looks around, checks her wrist, then releases her parachute. She dials a cell phone strapped to her wrist. She drifts downwards.
You've reached Special Agent Grant McLaren. Please leave a message.
She dials again and clasps yellow handles on the chute as she nears the ground. Meanwhile, Agent Wakefield sits in his office.
Wakefield.
This is an emergency communication, Protocol Alpha.
Protocol Alpha. Who is this?
This is Traveler 5001. We have less than 60 seconds before signal loss.
Yeah, I'm listening.
I need armed air assets to the following coordinates ASAP. 49.3506 degrees north, 122.8599 degrees west. Can you do this?
He checks his computer.
Possibly. I have a helicopter already in the air with agents aboard, but they're not travelers.
I said Protocol Alpha. Can you get them to these coordinates in the next 17 minutes?
Negative. Best case is 25 to 30.
What about assets on the ground?
25 minutes is our closest anything, and you're talking
In the middle of nowhere. I do have agents on the ground within roughly... Hello?
The woman hangs up. Moments later, she lands in a grassy field.
So you think about if your eyes were shut or you were blind, you would have no idea what was going on. So the description has to be good description.
A skydiving suit. A man eats a sandwich nearby.
Give me the keys!
Right. How about we just wait till your little brother touches down?
It's an emergency. Give me the keys.
They're in the ignition. Wait, what emergency? Harry, what's wrong? Just tell me what's going on. I'll drive you myself. Harry! Harry!
She speeds off as her diving partner lands.
So I think that gives you a good idea with that one. And we'll talk a little bit about the different types of audio description before we get into the other smaller clip. There are a number of different types. So there's the regular audio description like this. Then there's live description. So we did the Olympics. We've done the Olympics for the last 3 years. And we've done the Olympics for NBC this year and the Paralympics. So we have somebody in-house that is getting the live feed, and they're doing the description. So you can imagine how difficult that one is. It is similar to play-by-play, but you also have to listen for the commentator and make sure you're not stepping on the words the commentator is saying. So for us, they were live at NBC Studios as well as CBC Studios, so they have to be sports broadcasters because they have to understand the sports broadcasting aspect of it, but they also have to know description, and they also have to know that you can't rewind the tape, so to speak, and go back and fix anything. So we do a lot of live description, and then there's another type of description that's called embedded description, and what that is you're embedding it while you're producing the show, so you're looking at the types of things that you could include in description as you're describing. Like if you're doing something in a park, a sighted person can tell you're standing in a park and walking along, but a blind person can't tell that. So you would embed that. So in other words, you'd be saying, as we're in the park today, so that they get an idea of that. So there's a number of different ways to do it. One of the things that we're getting a lot of now is corporate videos. Corporations are now having to include description in what they're doing. So you think about, like one of our companies is the biggest insurance company in the U.S., and they were saying, here we are, we have a number of people that are blind that are our clients, and we're not serving them because we say to them, well, watch the video, or here's some information, and they don't get that. And part of what we're doing now is a lot of cruise lines. So you think about someone that's blind goes to a travel agent and says, I want to learn about this cruise. And they say, well, watch this video. Well, I'm blind, I can't watch the video. Then they go on the cruise ship and they go into the room and they want to know what they can do while they're on this cruise. And normally you'd say, well, there's a TV in your room with videos of what's going on, watch that. And again, they can't do it. So this is going to be a clip of one of the cruise ships that we do, and we also have to stretch these sometimes because it's continuous dialogue, and you don't want to step on dialogue because, again, if you're blind, you're trying to listen to what's on the screen and somebody's stepping over it. So here's a bit of an example here.
Aerial views. A high waterfall. A group of guests gathered on the edge of a cliff. A double kayak in blue water. Title: Introducing Northern Europe. A high overhead view of 5 kayaks. Then a seaborne cruise ship navigates a narrow fjord. On shore, an instructor demonstrates kayak paddling. Then an aerial view of the kayaks in motion in still blue water. A seaborne cruise ship is anchored nearby. Next, staff members take guests in groups of 12 in zodiacs. The zodiacs carry the guests to a nearby shore where they disembark to explore the pristine countryside. The land is rocky with green foliage, wild flowers, and patches of snow. An aerial view of guests gathered on a high rocky cliff overlooking the still blue water of the fjord. Then scenes of the double kayaks paddling alongside a town with colourful buildings. Later, the kayaks and rafts return to the ship. Logo: Ventures by Seaborne.
So what we're doing is painting a picture. And it's very important that the writers that are doing this are actually painting a vivid picture without giving away the plot. And so that's one of the things that we've found is very important, is the training of the writers, making sure that they're really trained well so that they're not using the same word over and over. We did Castaway, and you think about that movie with Tom Hanks on an island, and it took our writer 9 days to write that show because there's a lot of description to it because there's not a lot of dialogue. And so one of the things that, I thought I would explain a bit about process. So if you're looking at doing any of your projects and you want them to have descriptive video, the process is very easy. We just get a file from you, and our writers write the description, and that's part of what's really important is the way they write the description. So they need to understand what the genre of the show is, and there's varieties of shows. You think about ones that we're doing that are maybe a wine show, and then you've got a sports type of show, then you've got a drama. You look at, Narcos, that's a completely different show as well because there's subtitles. We do that one with subtitles in Spanish, so all different types. So anyway, we get the file from you. Our writers write the description between a dialogue. Then the narrator voices it. They lay it back, and it goes back to you to post wherever you choose to post it. So we are extremely passionate about what we do. It's really important for us to work with individuals that are blind and vision impaired so that we know what they want. So we do focus groups with kids. We do a lot of cartoons. And we just did focus groups. Netflix has given us a lot of animated shows and kids shows. And they said, how do you know whether they like them? I said, let's get some focus groups. And part of what I do when I'm at the focus group is I say, I don't want compliments. I want good information here. And one of the little girls is 5 years old, and usually you see an adult that's blind, and they have their white cane, and they're very slow with it. Not her. When she walks into that boardroom, she's got the cane, and she's just going like this, and and she wants to sit down and watch her shows. And so it's really, for us, it's wonderful because we get to see the joy that it brings to people. So you think about all the things that you're doing right now. You want to bring that to every audience. And there's a lot of people that are blind and vision impaired that can, benefit from the programming that you're doing. So anyway, I would like to open it up to any questions at all that you have, and yeah.
At a technical level, for television, I imagine it's just an audio channel you turn on or something like that. But is there support for it in YouTube or other
Yes. Yeah. So audio descriptions on YouTube. It's on Amazon. It's on Netflix. It's on iTunes. Yeah. It's more or less, how you would normally go down and you would choose French or English or closed captioning or subtitling or whatever. There's audio description there. And it's not as, like right now, closed captioning is 100%. In Canada, the CRTC has mandated by 2019 that all primetime programming has to have audio description. The U.S., I opened in the U.S. in 2011, so as of 2012, they had to do it. The U.K. is doing much more than anybody in North America, but we need to get up to the levels. It's throughout the world. So audio description is happening. It's, you think about the accessibility aspect of it. It would be like going to a restaurant and you're with somebody in a wheelchair and you say, "Where's the ramp?" And they say, "Oh, well, we don't have a ramp. We don't really care about people in a wheelchair." You'd never see that. So this to us is the same thing. Your programs need to be described for everyone. And so that's how things have changed a lot. And I know I was in television when closed captioning first came out. And I remember thinking, well, this is just ridiculous. Gee, I was sure right, wasn't I? You think about now every bank you go into, every gym you're at has closed captioning. And audio description needs to be at the same levels, because really we wouldn't treat somebody that's blind differently than we would treat somebody that's deaf. So, yeah. Yeah. I can give you kind of ballpark. A half-hour show, like a 22-minute show, would probably be around $600, and that's Canadian. So it's really, you look at the budget of many productions, and that's not a bad price. We try to keep it reasonable because we want to see more out there. Part of what we're doing, too, is making sure that we're promoting it as much as we can so people recognize that it's not that, and once it's done, it's done. So if you have a show that you're maybe doing for CBC and then Netflix wants it, it's not like you now have to go back and say, okay, well, now I've got to get this done because Netflix has asked for it or that CTV has asked for it. If you've done it for just a small, smaller broadcaster, once it's done, you've got it forever. And one of the things that I think that we're going to see very soon is distribution companies like E1 Entertainment. They're going to be looking at shows and saying, okay, I want to sell this series, but it doesn't have audio description, and my broadcaster has mandated that it has to have audio description. Those shows, I think, are going to sell quicker than a show that isn't audio described, or else they'll have to go back and have it audio described. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's the kind of thing when we get your file, we always ask, is it for broadcast? Is it for streaming? What's it for? And so we make sure, and we've got amazing technical people. I am not technical at all. And when I first started the company, that scared me. But I started out with some really good technical people. And that's part of what they'll ask, is they'll make sure that it's meeting the needs that you have from a technical standpoint, Mm-hmm. Yes. How difficult is it to write it? Oh, live, I think, is really challenging. We have a really strong live team. So what they do is they do their research ahead of time. So every day we did minimum of 5 hours throughout the Olympics. Then we did the Paralympics. So they do all of the research ahead of time. Then they get all the information that's coming in that, they need to now look at what's going on so they're completely prepared, because if they miss something, they miss it, and there's no chance to go back.
New Zealand.
Uh-huh.
Travel. But at home, it's not anywhere. They might have the odd captions, but we like this, but one, not this. You know, my sister's got a vision impairment herself.
Mm-hmm.
And she was working on it about, I can't read what's on the screen, I can't hear this. So it's different. Is there a plan to roll it out?
Absolutely, and New Zealand and Australia are starting to ramp theirs up, and it is mandated there. So you're going to notice in the next couple of years there's going to be a lot more programming. I really believe that streaming companies like Netflix and Amazon are raising the bar for everybody. They really are. And why shouldn't your sister watch all of these programs? Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things that we loved about doing the Olympics. We had so many people coming to us and saying, we don't even like watching the Olympics with Mom because she keeps saying, what's going on? What's going on? And with Description, they can all watch it together and they don't find that there's the pressure. And when we did focus groups after the Olympics, I was talking to one of the people on our advisory council, and I said to her, did you watch the Olympics? And she says, oh, the closing ceremonies were amazing. She said, my husband's been describing them to me because he's sighted for 30 years. And she said, but he never describes when they're crying or the emotion that's going on. And she said, it was so wonderful because your describers were saying, oh, her hand's on her heart and she's holding her medal and this and that. And she says, I really got the flavor of that, which to me made it so worthwhile what we're doing, because it brought joy to somebody that she wouldn't have had if we hadn't been doing that. And I won't bore you with all the stories like that, but there's so many stories like that. And that's what, our whole company, everybody does it because they love what they're doing and they want to do it really well. And that's how the stories, to me, have a much wider audience than they would have before. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Out of curiosity, during the Travelers example you showed, there was a description for the title of the show, but they didn't say the names of the actors as they appear. Is that like on purpose?
No, we do the credits. And they probably did them at the end. So what we do with a program like that, and that's a great question, it really is. If you think about it, a person that's blind isn't saying, gee, that's not happening right now because they can't see. So we fit things in when we can. So we do the credits at the end because you look at the opening of Travelers, and that was, you wanted to see everything that was going on. If all of that was going on, the scene was going on, but we were giving you the credits, you would have turned it off and said, okay, but the credits are going to be at the end. So we're still crediting everybody that has contributed, and we also make sure that we don't do all of the credits unless the producer wants all of them, because sometimes it's too much. But that's a really good question. Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody, for your time today. And now you can, next time you're watching a show, check and see if it's got audio description. And there's different ways. Some people call it narrative description. Some people call it audio description, descriptive video, described video, but it's all the same thing. So thank you very much. And thank you, Paula. Okay.